What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another highly combustible reaction. We're jumping into the next one on our little Americans living abroad journey from TikTok news. Definitely get over, show them some love. We're hitting the like button because we learn a lot of things. I'm not living abroad anymore. A lot of people know I'm back in California now. God help me. Yeah, I lived in a lot of different places. I lived in Afghanistan for 6.5 years. I lived in Thailand for 8. You definitely learn some shit about your country when you move abroad. Let's jump in. Let's check it out together. First time you realize America really messed you up. Part 2 from TikTok news. Go show the love.
What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
It's not current, but when I was studying in the UK, one day I really needed to see a doctor. But I didn't know how to access care. I didn't know what my insurance situation was like, so I just went to work. And eventually I was in so much pain that I burst into tears and my boss pulled me aside. And he was like, "What's up?" And I was like, "I really need to see a doctor, but I don't know how to access care here. I don't know if I can afford it." And he was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Oh, damn. What the fuck are you talking
Doctor,
about?
but I don't know how to access care here. I don't know if I can afford it. And he was like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Go down the street to the hospital." And I argued with him. And he was like, "No, just trust me. Just go to the hospital." So I went and I was like clutching my like student ID in my hand, my passport. And I was like trying to remember how much I had in my bank account, like checking. And I got called back to the doctor. He was like, "Yep, this is what's wrong with you. Pick up your prescription on the way out." And I was like, "I'm sorry, do you know how much it's going to be?" And he said, "I don't know, maybe 8 pounds." I was like, "I'm sorry, 8?" He was like, "Yeah, I don't think it's ever more than that." The receptionist kept laughing at me because I didn't feel comfortable leaving without paying somebody. And
Don't worry, dear. They laugh at us all the time. Not
the
just you.
receptionist kept laughing at me because I didn't feel comfortable leaving without paying somebody. And I kept asking and asking if I owed anybody any money.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize?
I am back for round 2 on this one. So I just moved to Italy with my boyfriend who is Italian. We're watching a movie the other day where somebody is running away and they get shot. And I'm like, you know what? That's their fault. They didn't run in a zigzag. That's like the first thing they teach you, to run in a zigzag if somebody's pointing a gun at you. He pauses the movie and he looks at me and he goes, "Who taught you that?" And I'm like, you know, like teachers, adults, parents, like they teach you when you're young to run in a zigzag if somebody is pointing a gun at you. The sinking feeling I had when I realized that nobody ever had to teach him that when he was young, because that's not a problem here.
And currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Oh, I've got a couple. So I'm from Los Angeles and now I live in Austria. And basically when I first started working here, they were like, you get 25 days vacation, Fridays off early, and if you're sick, don't come into work. And I was just like, I was floored. Because in the US, you only get 10 days vacation and like 5 sick days, and you don't get Fridays off early. You better work your ass until it's 9 p.m. On top of all of that, all my friends here have like 2 masters, 3 PhDs, etc., etc., etc.
Most of them all speak multiple languages.
Because
We know.
education here is actually free. Amazing. What an amazing concept. In addition, I have yet to see a large homeless community out in the open here in Austria because the government actually offers some social support. A lot of social support. In LA, you have villages, streets, blocks full of homeless people because our government doesn't care about us.
We've got that here now, too. It's one of the sad things that I had to kind of look around and see upon arriving back. Lots and lots and loads of homeless people. And I'm not talking about just people that are down and out on their luck. Not just someone who's having a hard time in life. I'm talking about trash everywhere, coming out of the RV windows, which I don't even know how the hell you afford an RV if you can't afford nothing else, because a normal person, an RV is expensive as shit. But here, we've got tons of them. Tons of them, and every single one of them's got shit exploding out of the windows. It's just some ready living, not just someone who's having a hard time. If they park on your property, nobody's gonna do anything about it. When you call the police, they're gonna tell you that there's nothing we can do about the homeless and that they're entitled to their possessions as well. Most other countries that I know of, if their possessions happen to be on my property, they're gonna get it moved. Like, not here. That's not the way it works. Here, homeless folks got more rights than the normal everyday tax-paying citizens.
And here, people like don't measure their worth off the car they drive.
What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So I'm from LA and I moved to Singapore. And before coming here, I asked all my friends if I should bring anything like, a pepper spray just in case anything happens. And they were like, no, that's like actually illegal. I don't think that they're allowed to have any kind of weapon. And I was like, what? We literally put them in our keychains as accessories.
Yeah, we
I was
do.
like, how do you defend yourself? They were like, from what? You don't have to. It's so safe. I was like, no way. So I Googled it and no one is allowed to use greater force than necessary to defend themselves. What? The US can't ban guns, but Singapore can ban pepper sprays?
See, that's the problem, though, is that everybody out there hooting and hollering, they just need to ban guns. We've got more guns than we do people. Like, by a lot. It's impossible to ban that. Who's going to turn them in? Nobody.
Abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up? I'll go.
When I had my first child, we were stationed overseas in Germany. And at that point, I'd been a nurse for about 5 years. And I had a C-section. So day 3, after I delivered, I was packing up my stuff and getting the baby ready to go home. And the German nurse walked in and looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm packing to go home." And she said, "Nein, you're not going home. You just had major surgery. We have physical therapy coming to see you. And dinner is on its way up. And if you'd like, I can call down and have them bring up some beer. But you need to rest." And I thought, yeah, I did have major surgery. I do need to rest. And they kept me for another week until I was ready to go home and I could take care of everything on my own.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up? I'll go first.
I live in Warsaw, Poland now, but I always stay in touch with what's happening in the US, and I happened to hear about that Las Vegas shooting when someone opened fire on a bunch of concert goers. And it was very tragic news, but that day I also went to the movies, so I was already in a kind of weird mental state. And when I left the movies, I got on the tram again in Warsaw, and I saw this guy kind of being sketchy and acting weird in the last seat. I kept eyeing him the whole time, and he had his jacket open and he was holding something inside. He was hiding it. And I thought, my first American thought was it's a gun or a knife or some kind of weapon and I need to move away as soon as possible. So I kept looking at him the whole ride, and then he takes it out and it was a beer can. He was sipping it and hiding it during the tram ride. That's what happens in Poland, not guns, not knives. And I started crying and laughing at the same time because that's when I realized, wow, that's messed up.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really...
So I can make like 200 of these, but I'll just talk about the first time I realized how fucked up the US is, which was in the first week that I got to Sweden.
I'm so glad that there are other Americans that travel abroad and get woken up.
When my boyfriend's family told me that I need to make sure I get insured, and that I get insurance for everything I own, my laptop, my bike, my apartment, my whole body. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's so expensive. Like, I'm already super in debt with student loans, so no. But I asked out of curiosity, just like how much it was going to cost. $100 a year to insure everything I have. For reference, like the average American person spends $456 a month just on health insurance. Just for healthcare. That doesn't include cars or home insurance.
American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So I live in Paris, and 2 months ago I got hit by a taxi relatively hard. I fell down on the street. All these people came and they picked me up. They brought me over to a bench. Someone from a restaurant brought me a glass of water. Another woman gave me a handful of coins. And I was like, "I don't need your money. It's okay." And she was like, "Sweetheart, this is your money. It fell out of your pockets when you got hit by the taxi." And I was like, Sonic the Hedgehog vibes. Great.
She dropped all her coins. I love the Sonic the Hedgehog reference.
Hits me, goes to call the ambulance, and I said, "Stop. Do not call the ambulance. That will cost me $3,000 to $5,000 because that's what an ambulance costs in America." And he was like, "What are you talking about? An ambulance is €7.
€7. The minimum that you're gonna pay over here is like $500 or $600 minimum.
I was like, "Oh my God." Remind me to twist my ankle on the way home from the club, and they'll give me an IV so I won't be hungover the next day.
Call the ambulance.
Catch me at the hospital. This is lit.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really...
So my first year here in Paris, I was an au pair, and I got really sick during the winter. It was bronchitis, and I couldn't breathe. I was coughing a lot. I was trying to avoid going to the emergency room as much as possible because in the US it's very, very expensive. But there was one night where I really couldn't hold out any longer, so I drove to the emergency room. And when I was there, they gave me a nebulizer, and then they wanted to give me chest x-rays. And I was like, listen, can we please not do the chest x-rays? I'm fine, let's just go. And the doctor looked at me and she was like, why don't you want to do these? You have to do them, you could have damage. And I said, well, I don't have any money, I'm not going to be able to afford it. And she looked at me and she was like, it's covered with Social Security. So I was like, oh, okay. And then instead of having to book a whole another appointment and wait forever for the results, we walked down the hall, we took the chest x-rays, I had the results in 5 minutes. I paid 12 euros and then I was reimbursed 3 days later.
American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So I started my new job in the Netherlands. This was 3 years ago, and I was going through the company policy the first week. And I got to the section about leave, and they have a holiday leave, like PTO, and then they had sick leave in 2 different areas. And I was reading about sick leave, and I turned to my coworker, and I was like, I don't understand. Like, it talks about, like, the requirements for sick leave and, like, doctor notes, like, after 3 days, but how many sick days do we get a year? And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, how many are there? It doesn't say. She's like, it's just, if you're sick, you're out. I'm like, I don't understand. She's like, it's unlimited. It's just, if you're sick, you take a sick day. She was confused. I was shocked. There's a moment I realized we're fucked up in America and how we deal with people being sick with work.
We're fucked up in America in a lot of ways. Most certainly, it gets me kind of emotional seeing all these damn people that woke up and knowing how many are still damn lost, dazed and confused, just absolutely believing the hype that they live in the best place ever.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really...
Yeah, so this one hit me pretty hard. It was one of the first dates I ever had in Germany with my boyfriend, and he wanted to take me on a nature walk. Well, it was a beautiful day, and we went on this beautiful trail, but it ended out leading up to somebody's field, like a farmer's field, and I absolutely wanted nothing to do with that. I said, nope, that's it, we're going home, I'm not doing that, and he kind of was persistent and saying, like, why? And I was like, are you crazy? They're gonna shoot us. I was pretty new to Germany, so I didn't really understand how things worked yet. But I did grow up in rural western New York, where if you trespass on somebody's property, their woods or their field, there's a good chance that you'd be shot and killed. My next door neighbors would get blackout drunk and then start shooting off their back porch into the random wilderness. And he stopped me and said, nobody shoots trespassers here, why would they do that? Even if they're trespassing, like, that's so overdramatic. And it hit me how normalized that was for me growing up, that I could potentially die going for a walk.
American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Here's a fun one. So I'm teaching 3rd grade in Thailand, right? And it's sports day. Kids running around, screaming, having fun, as kids do. And I hear a bang. Instantly, my heart drops into my stomach, my entire body tenses, my adrenaline starts pumping, and I'm looking around for the shooter. And then I realize I'm in Thailand, and people don't have guns, and they don't shoot children at their school. It was a balloon. A balloon popped. Fuck you, America.
American currently living abroad. What...
That being said, a lot of Thais do have guns. They're just not running around crazy, waving them at people, anything like that. Most of them are highly, highly illegally owned. But you can look around. You can see people that are carrying underneath their clothes, if you know what to look for, the certain bulges and things like that. It's just not crazy. You know that you're not just going to randomly hear shots popping off. Like, it's not... I don't know, it's very, very bizarre.
What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
So I grew up in southern Indiana, and I moved to London, England. So I just moved to England, and, you know, I made a lot of new friends. So I go to a party, this was like 3 years ago. And let's say one of my friends he drank too much water. And, you know, all my friends were taking care of him, including myself, and all of a sudden one of them goes, hey, we gotta call an ambulance. And I was like, no, dude, like, you know how much money that costs? Like, he just drank too much water, he's gonna be fine. And right when I said that, everyone looked at me and said, mate, what are you talking about? And I was like, dude, the ambulance is gonna cost like $3,000. And that was the moment I realized that England had free healthcare.
American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Hi. So I've been living in Spain for about 11 years, and this happened like 11 years ago. It was my first time going to the emergency room, and when, stomach problems, whatever, couldn't stop throwing up. And I go in, give the girl at the front desk my ID and my debit card. And she takes my ID, checks me in, hands both cards back to me. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I give the debit card, I pay at the end. So I go in, everything, give me medicine, and I go back out. I stop at the front desk again, and I was like, hi, I'm leaving. Here's my debit card. And she just looks at me and she's like, I don't know why you keep giving this to me. You don't need to give me your debit card. I don't get it. And I'm like, oh, you don't have to pay for health services, even in a private hospital.
That's one of the hardest damn things. That a lot of people over here are paying in some exorbitant amount, some crazy exuberant amount of money for healthcare, for different things related to their healthcare, for all of these things. And we have no idea that everywhere else it's just like healthcare is a basic kind of right.
Tell me you've been single a long time without telling me you've been single a long time.
When people ask if I'm in a relationship with anyone, I say, yeah, with Jesus. Because he's enough for me. He's all I need.
Name a job where the amount of work and the amount of pay do not match.
Oh, that's easy. Being a Section 8 real estate investor, I might, on a good week, put in 5 hours worth of work if I'm lucky. That's normally just signing off documents such as new HVAC installations or roofing installations. And for that amount of work that I put in, Section 8 will send me over $400,000 per month in rental payments for my tenants. Obviously, about 60% of that is actually passive cash flow. The other 40% goes to the bank and mortgages and taxes and insurance.
Jesus Christ.
But for the amount of work that I do and the amount of pay that they pay me each month, it's very not matching up.
It seemed like a very lucrative business, that is Section 8 housing. Jesus, makes you want to kind of start a Section 8 hotel. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure you get over and show TikTok News some love. I would love to say that I enjoyed it, but I find it heartbreaking and downright shitty. Like, legitimately, we're just blind to everything that happens until we're able to get out. Wake up, America. Smash the like button if you liked it, the dislike button, but I won't believe you. Until the next one, I'm highly combustible. You guys be happy, healthy, safe. I love you to the moon and back. Peace.